Welcome back to another episode of our narrated playthrough of Diablo 4. My name is Arcane from Crowface Cowboys, and let's get into it.
Yeah, take it away, Ernie. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Act 3 starts right after we murdered the demon Astaroth, who had made a deal with Lilith in exchange for free passage, presumably through hell. Understandably concerned, we really should do our best to figure out what's really going on and stop our unholy mother.
My power is the ability to pretend like I give a damn about your piddly-ass problems.
To do that, we follow after Lorath, who had split from us a while ago in order to do his own thing. I really hope he's been more successful than we've been in the last couple acts.
Oh, bloody Cannibals, what do you want?
Well, we find him passed the fuck out drunk on the ground. He's certainly been successful at something, apparently, even if it's just drinking himself into a stupor.
Curse you for breathing, you slut-jawed idiot!
We wake him up with some difficulty and he finally gives us some more information on the pale man that was in the opening cinematic. Turns out his name was Elias, and he was the apprentice to the upstanding Haradrim in front of us. All I can say for Elias is at least he didn't fail at everything like his master. Still too drunk to walk, Lorath sends us to follow up on the leads that he's put in place while we were busy fighting for our lives and slaying demons in hell. We find out that Elias was seen passing through a nearby canyon some time ago.
We go at once.
He also tells us that the abbot hasn't responded to Lorath at all, which is weird because no one would ever blow off this guy. Certainly not.
Never?
Looks like we have two orders of business. First, let's go check out the canyons because I'm sure that the random rumor of Elias possibly being seen there a while ago is more pressing than an abbot refusing to respond to our requests. Certainly seems like there's more time pressure there. After a short jaunt through about half the realm in pursuit of other people's problems, we finally meet up with Lorath at the entrance to the canyon. He's convinced that Elias or his people are probably still here because of the random demon sightings. Not really sure why the guy would stay there, but sure, let's go with that. As we move through the canyon, Lorath's concerns continue to grow as he realizes that all the demons are just noobs. And by that I mean they suck at the whole
rip and tear until it is done.
We find out that Lilith and Elias had been converting incels into their cult and convincing them to summon demons for power. Remember I said incels, it'll come up again later. After following the hidden path behind the random summoner's house, we actually managed to track him down. We try to tell him that Elias sent us, but managed to roll a nat 1 and insinuate that Elias is not perfect in every single way. He sees through it pretty fast and tries to murder us for besmirching the name of his idol. While we murder all of his noob demons, he beseeches Elias to grant him salvation. Instead, Elias just summons a slightly less noob demon that falls before me pretty quickly. Lorath convinces us that Elias trying to murder us was really a sign of affection and his demon was just a gift. I understand why this guy was hiding away in the middle of nowhere by himself now. He really has a gift for social interaction. First order of business now complete. It's time for us to go and figure out just why the monastery decided not to answer our friend request. When we get there, it becomes pretty clear. We find the place overrun with demons, and a guy carrying a message for us dead on the ground. They had tried to warn us that Elias had come there and wanted us to come to the monastery as fast as possible. Maybe I shouldn't have helped Aunt Susie cross the road a few times. Well, at least I can help him now.
This place has been taken. It reeks of forbidden spells.
As we go, we find out some more interesting lore about the universe. Quick reminder that this is my first Diablo game and I know very little or next to nothing beyond what I've spoken of in these videos. Supposedly, at some point in the past, there was a great beast named Tothamet that was killed. From its 7 heads rose the 7 great evils, with 3 prime and 4 lesser. What determined whether or not an evil was lesser or prime?
I don't know!
Maybe it's because the primes had a prime number of heads and the lessers didn't? If we ever see one, I'll make sure to point it out so we can figure out if the true demon was math all along. Either way, before we find out more about the evils, it's time to murder some raving monks. This one in particular is so dead set on not letting knowledge leave that he becomes, well, dead. One interesting thing about this is the password to the inner sanctum of the monastery.
From morning, my eyes were opened, and I saw the coming darkness. Through the day, I have prepared to accept the burden of knowledge. Unto evening, I shall keep it safe, and into the night hereafter.
No real commentary on it, but I just like the idea it represents. Well, Behind the door is the abbot. He tells us that Elias is going to summon one of the lesser evils that was Chekhov gunned to us a moment ago. Sadly, his story ends even more tragically than I suspected when he becomes a conglomerate of a bunch of spirits and needs to be put down. In other words, we taught him why people really shouldn't ignore the random old drunk in the woods. Info dump time on the evils, by the way. First, the 3 prime evils. They include Diablo, the series' namesake, Mephisto, the father of Lilith, and Baal, aka Batman.
Okay.
Below them as the lesser evils are Asmodon, Belial, Andariel, and Duriel. Apparently they are all bad in capital letters. Huh, I wonder if we've ever seen any of them before. We did want to figure out how many heads they have. Time will tell, I guess. In one of the most weirdly, unintentionally funny scenes I've seen in a while, Lorath starts pulling out body parts of nobles from the belly of the demon that Elias sent after us.
This is delicate. A soft noble's hand.
If we hadn't proven that we could murder things like those demons, I'm pretty sure that Lorath would have been burned at the stake for weighing the same as a duck.
A witch! A witch!
Newt Erd.
Oh, she turned me into a newt!
Future avoided. We have to figure out a way to get into the city that the corpses came from. To do that, we need to enlist the help of the only person who knows a secret passage that will let us in. Unfortunately, she's been missing for a while in a city filled with cannibals, so she might also be in someone's belly.
Get in my belly!
Well, murdering cannibals sounds like a good way to pass the time, so I'm down to try to find her. After a bit, we find a villager who tells us that the cannibals have rounded up some people and are keeping them in the prison for a late night stack. Operation Jailbreak is a go, not to be confused with phones. Quick fight with A-Kill, Jailer of the Week. Later, we find some prisoners that have been utterly broken inside. Editor, play the clip.
They get stronger from eating us.
I'll taste better, right? Please, let me eat more.
Off came a finger, out came an eye, packed up nice in the butcher's pie.
Who says things like that? Oyun, the chick we are trying to find, hasn't succumbed, thankfully. For some reason, she's by herself in a room larger than a $5,000 a month apartment downtown. AKA it's like 500 square feet or something like that.
Well, this sucks.
Also, like apartments, one of the walls is basically falling apart and just needs a little electroshock therapy to let us out into an escape route.
There used to be an entrance to the
Her
prison.
reunion with her friend Zelaya is truly touching.
Oh, you stubborn cow.
Lorath is also super impressed by us and calls us a lucky fool. Such love, Lorath.
Stubborn cow.
Armed with a hidden entrance given to us as recompense for saving her from being eaten, it's time for us to assault the palace. As we sneak through, we end up finding out a bit more about the lesser evil that Elias wants to summon. Apparently it's Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, the one who revels in mental and emotional torment. Why the particular one matters? Not really sure. Like, yay, it's the one who mentally tortures us rather than physically does it. It's so much better. Well, Elias certainly thinks so. From some writings we find he intends to chain up Andariel and use her power to fight the other lords of hell. A real ends justify the means type thing. Let's see how that plays out for him when he tries it. Well, first we'll try to stop it, obviously. Next stop, Temple of the Primes. Locked down to those not possessing blessings from the prime evils, it falls to us to bite the bullet and track down the 3 shrines. The first 2, to Batman and Diablo, go easily. Mephisto, however, is when things start to get interesting. Did you notice when I kept alluding to the fact that we needed to see a prime evil? Well, we kinda already have, and you guys have too. I even jump scared you with him back in the very first episode. Yep, Mephisto is the wolf thingy that saved us at the beginning, and then also helped us get through the illusion of the Horadrim a bit after that. Seems like he's a real upstanding guy. Shame he's the Lord of Hatred, father of Lilith and all that.
But you and I can put things back in order.
He tells us that Elias's efforts have caused some issues in his realm that we need to deal with before he'll give us his blessing. And by deal with, I still mean bash in the head until stop moving. Mephisto, seeing that we are a natural born killer, thanks us for our help. He even accepts that he is working at a reduced capacity, which I presume is due to the first 3 in the series, but who knows. Either way, he gives us his blessing to murder his daughter. Back with Lorath, we tell him that apparently we are best buds with the Lord of Hatred, and he just says, "Go back to your room, Grandma." Final arc of Act 3. Time to stop the summoning of the Maiden of Anguish before she can cause desolation. To do that, we have to infiltrate the Temple of Primes and hopefully murder Elias before he can succeed. We find the ritual in progress. Elias is tattooing strange markings into a girl stuck on an altar with a cloud of blood hanging above her. In one of the best plans of all time, Lorath basically says to us, "You just watch. I must 1v1 my apprentice." Utterly predictably, it doesn't work. Lorath makes a good effort though and does stab Elias. Remember the cloud of blood I mentioned above them? Yeah, that makes like rain and pours. Lorath takes the girl and runs away, leaving us to actually handle the mess he made. Brol the Tyrant King gets slowly cooked to death by my combination of electric fire. I ended up taking the enchantment that makes all of my damage apply a burn effect, which then lets us do some fun things like heal a ton in fights, as well as crit for way more. All I had to give up was the last vestiges of my dream to be a summoner spork. My enemy dead on the floor behind me, I really should figure out what happened to the woman who's going to be sacrificed for lesser evil. She, Taisha, tells us that she has the voice of Andario stuck in her head, with her body searing like fire. That certainly sounds healthy. Next stop is tracking down the palace where Elias is staying to put him to rest for good this time. No 1v1s, just an alpha strike of burning lightning. We find out that there are rumors of a powerful sorcerer living in a palace shrouded by the forces of sand and sunder. None of the guides are willing to take us except for an old ally of Lorath. Interestingly, he calls Lorath Cain. I really hope that the name Cain isn't meaningful here, but who knows. Surprisingly, the trip through the sandstorms is super easy, barely an inconvenience. The palace turns out to be a gorgeous oasis of architecture. In a strange spat of care for other people, Lorath tells our driver to stay outside and touch nothing when we go in and storm the castle. We quickly find Elias and manage to kill him in about 5 seconds. Alpha strike. I'll be honest, when this happened, I was congratulating myself on having crafted a masterful build for a moment. Imagine my surprise when Elias pops up again a few minutes later like, "Gotcha, bitch!" Before that, we see another vision of the past from one of Lilith's blood petals. Lilith fears that the prime evils will destroy Sanctuary, and is trying to empower the populace to defend themselves against them.
Whatever the cost.
Remember how I mentioned incels? Throughout this dungeon, I swear that all of the cultists are just summoning succubuses. Like, yeah, succubuses. Why not? Throughout this dungeon, we end up fighting Elias like 5 times, by the way, with each one becoming a bit harder and more complicated than one before. I didn't mention this before, but Elias had an artifact called the Sightless Eye that can be used to see anything in space or time. We steal it before Elias can come back another time and run for the hills. And by hills I mean our guide, who sadly has the opposite of a hill in his back from a stab. Lorath, again demonstrating amazing social skills and words of wisdom, has the best summation.
So it goes.
And there ends Act 3 of this playthrough of Diablo 4. How did you guys like the style of this one? I focused much more about the main story and didn't really talk much about side quests or other things. Let me know in the comment section below which style you like more. Hope that you all are doing great, and see you next time as we take on Act 4 and finally get a mount, even though I'm almost level 44!
You got me monologuing. I can't believe it.